gonna raise this up a little bit so it's easier. If this is your first time clicking on one of my videos, then I just want to say welcome. My name is Kinsley Hauser. I am a realtor in the Oklahoma City metro area. I primarily work kind of on the north side of Oklahoma City in Edmond, but I do all over the Oklahoma City metro. And I moved to Oklahoma about 3 years ago. This summer will be 3 years. So, like many people thinking about moving, I went through the same thing. And so, I know some people might see that as a con. I see it as a pro because I know that process. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be looking into different areas and all that sort of thing. So when I got into real estate, I knew that I wanted to create a YouTube channel just to help people. And then I started doing these live videos to just kind of give some weekly market updates, also some questions and answers. So if you're watching and you do have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat so that I can answer them. If I don't get any, then I will kind of talk through some questions that I often receive at the end. But for a market update, if you're watching this and you think it might be helpful in the comments, let me know if you would find it interesting to do kind of like a monthly reel video on a monthly update. So not just these live videos, but maybe more of a regular video where I can even share my screen and show you some of the more in-depth details, because a lot of the market updates I'm giving here are just very surface level, and there's so much more information that can be put out there. So if that's something that you think would be interesting and maybe just want to know, let me know in the comments. And I can, potentially start doing that maybe monthly, just kind of giving some of those market stats and the update from what's come out. So for today's sake, though, I do want to kind of talk through what we're seeing in Oklahoma City and Edmond specifically through the whole MLS. And within our whole MLS, within the last week, we had 520 new listings. So I'm also not, these are just new listings. Obviously, there's more than 520 on the market, but these are ones that just came on the market, new listings. This does not include those that went back on the market. This doesn't include price decreases. These are just new to the market. And then pending, there were 602. So just pending to new listings, there were already more pending. And then there were 385 sold. So significantly more houses, again, like we've been seeing the past few weeks, being taken off the market than being put on. In Oklahoma City specifically, there were 131 new listings, 139 pending, and 85 sold. So again, substantially more being taken off the market or being made unavailable than what's new to the market. And then in Edmond, 59 new listings, 63 pending, and 61 sold. So almost double the ones being made unavailable than being made available. And so, kind of like I've said in weeks past, this is just creating more of that, I would say, seller's market where competition is going to increase. There's more houses becoming unavailable than becoming available. And so over time, if the trend continues, it's just going to be a decrease in inventory. And so I think that's always really interesting to know, and seeing those numbers and knowing that the closer we get to the spring, sometimes people will say that the Super Bowl was kind of like the beginning of the real estate market season, and Super Bowl was last night. And so I definitely think that we're going to see those numbers even increase more and more. So it'll be interesting to see next week how those numbers are affected after the Super Bowl and kind of getting into that home buying season. And I know just for my own personal, I'm definitely busier this time, like this year at this point, than I was last year at this time. I think just more people getting in the market earlier than maybe what they did last year. And so I would say that if you are in that situation where you're thinking about moving soon in the next couple months, a lot of people look for summer. If you can maybe make it work for yourself to where you can move a little bit earlier and beat some of that competition, I definitely think that in the long run, you're going to probably be glad that you did. Obviously, rates, could go down a little bit more, but with rates going down, that's just going to bring in more buyers. And so kind of some give and take with all of that, but just kind of wanted to give you those statistics. And as we kind of go through some questions, if anybody watching has some questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But until any of those, I do want to go through some questions that sometimes I receive, and they're not questions that I would even know to ask or to answer, because people that ask me these questions live in places that I've never lived in, and they just have different things that I've never had to think about. And so I've once been asked the question about dog permits. So if you have a dog, do you have to have a permit for that dog? I'm going to say no. I have two dogs and I've never had to get a permit. So maybe somebody watching this knows differently, but I have never had to do that. So I do not, to my knowledge, that is not a thing. And we take our dogs to the vet and to the groomers regularly. So I think that it's pretty safe to say that dog permits are not a thing here, at least where I'm at in Edmond in Oklahoma County. So dog permits. I guess the person who asked that, they were from Alaska, and so maybe that's more common there. But at least for here, that is not a thing. And for those of you hopping on the live stream, if you have any questions for me, then definitely feel free to put those. I think we've got a couple more joined on. Some other questions that I get asked sometimes, because in some of those big major cities, they often will have blackouts with power. And so I've been asked if we face that here. That's definitely not something that we see often. And again, like I said in the beginning, I've lived here for 3 years and we've never seen that since I've lived here. Not to say it couldn't happen in the future, but at least from my experience of living here, that's not something that we see. I think a lot of times in those cities where so many people move so fast, it's just unattainable to keep up with. There are a lot of people moving here, but I haven't seen it to the extent where that's becoming an issue. Similarly with water, I know I've talked to some people who have moved from Dallas, and they've said that from moving, one of the reasons they're wanting to move is because so much of the like city, so many people are moving to the city that the infrastructure isn't built to withstand all of that. And so they're running out of water. So, like I've been asked, do you have that issue where you run out of water? And again, no, from my experience of living here, no. Again, not to say that could never happen in the future, but at least from at this point, no, that's not something that we see. Um, and I mean, who knows? I think that there's a lot of resources here. The infrastructure's here, I believe. So at least as to this point, that's not something that we've seen. I also sometimes will get asked about like sinkholes, and I think I've maybe answered that before, but that's also not something that I see looking at houses driving around town. I have not seen that. Again, not to say it could never happen, but not something that I've seen. There have been actually a kind of an odd number of earthquakes here recently. I had never experienced an earthquake until about a month ago. And one night we were watching a movie and our house started to shake, and it's kind of scary. And I didn't know what it was. And then later we figured out that it was an earthquake. And within that night, I think there were like 8. We only felt maybe 2 or 3 of them, but definitely experienced that for the first time, which had not felt that before. And then maybe 2 weeks later, there was another earthquake that took place, and I think they said it was like a 5.5. It lasted for probably 10 seconds. And at that point, we had already felt it, so we knew what it was. But uh, I guess earthquakes, if you would have asked me that 2 months ago, I would have said, no, we don't really get earthquakes, haven't felt them. But now I've felt at least 3 or 4 in the past month. So I will say though, that's like the only earthquakes I felt in the 3 years that we've lived here. So I don't know what it is about right now, but we're definitely feeling more of them right now. And so earthquakes do happen here. So um, trying to think if there's any other questions. If you're watching and you have any questions, then definitely put them in the chat. If you are watching for the first time, I am a realtor in the Oklahoma City metro area, primarily do Edmond. Somebody asked, how is property taxes in Edmond compared to other counties? So when you're in Edmond, your taxes are going to typically in the Oklahoma City metro, I will usually calculate 1% for property taxes. If you're in Edmond and Deer Creek or Edmond Public Schools, your property taxes are probably going to fall within the 1.1 to 1.2 range percent. And that's just because of the school districts. Those are typically going to get taxed a little bit higher if you're in one of those school districts versus being in maybe Oklahoma County, but you might be in Oklahoma City Public Schools. So there's a lot of school districts within Oklahoma County, but like Deer Creek schools and Edmond schools, they're going to have slightly higher property taxes than what you're going to have if you live in Oklahoma City Public Schools. So typically Edmond's around 1.1 to 1.2, I would say is a rough estimate. This says, hello, Kinsley. I have been following the market, Edmond, Northwest Oklahoma City. I'm wondering if you could share how utilities work. Is it like Texas Power, or are you assigned a provider? If assigned, are there companies to watch out for? That's a great question, because typically if you're in Edmond, and I can't remember exactly the street that it's on, but when you look at Edmond as a whole, you have Western Edmond, and Western Edmond most of that actually falls within Oklahoma City utilities, which most people prefer because they tend to be cheaper. If you're in Edmond and like the Edmond zip codes, typically those are like within Edmond utilities. And I think it's just called like Edmond City Utilities. And then they have, I'm trying to think, there's one other one that Edmond has to use. Maybe it's gas. They have to use kind of like the Oklahoma natural gas. Um, I believe that's right. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head because every time I have a closing, I send an email of all the utilities. So I think it maybe is gas, maybe. Anyway, but Edmond has kind of their own utilities and you're kind of just at the mercy of what's there. West Edmond and then Oklahoma City, Northwest Oklahoma City, they will typically fall within the Oklahoma City utilities. And so that would be OG&E for electric. And that's, at least from what I've seen, pretty much the only option that you're able to get. That's what I have. Pretty, I mean, it's, I don't notice anything necessarily bad or good. Then you're going to have Oklahoma natural gas. You'll have Oklahoma City trash and water. And so you kind of, if you live in Oklahoma City, or you have those Oklahoma City utilities. There's a few more places that you choose from, but whereas Edmond's, a lot of it is actually just within the Edmond utilities. So I hope that makes sense. But typically, if people can get Oklahoma City utilities, they prefer that because they tend to be a little bit cheaper. So one thing I also, when we moved here, the water or the trash and your water together. But on trash, you have some states I know are different. You have like your assigned trash cans, but then once a month, they actually have what they call like their big dump day, and you can put like big items that won't fit in your trash can, and they'll come and pick them up. So people will get rid of furniture that way, so you don't have to take it somewhere. People will get rid of, like when we redid our house, we got rid of all of our carpet that way. Um, maybe not appliances, but like toilets and that sort of thing. So that was kind of cool for us, at least, because it saved us a lot of money with getting rid of stuff when we were renovating our house. So yeah, I hope that that helps answer the questions on the kind of utilities and all of that. I might be able to actually look up really fast and look at my email and see if I can find exactly what it is that's different for Edmond, because I know there's Edmond utilities. I have it saved on a template in my email, so I'm going to look really fast and see. Okay, so yeah, Edmond, yeah, it's Oklahoma Natural Gas. So City of Edmond utility, and then there's Oklahoma Natural Gas. So utilities would be water, trash, electric, all of that. And then you would just get your gas from ONG. So yeah, hope that helps. I have Oklahoma City utilities, and so it's pretty nice to be able to have a little bit of the cheaper, but my house is in Edmond Public Schools, Oklahoma County, Oklahoma City utilities. It can kind of be confusing. And when you get a little bit north in Deer Creek on the western side, there is like Deer Creek water, so that just kind of varies exactly where your neighborhood's at. If you have a big enough lot, you might have a well and septic. That's always kind of nice to have too, in my opinion. But yeah, so I hope that helped. If there's no other questions, then I'm probably going to hop off of this. I've thought about maybe doing these in the evenings. So if that is maybe something that would be better, maybe I'll do a poll on my community tab of just like, is morning better, evening better? And then you just let me know on that poll, and then I can maybe switch it and change it need be. So, yes, it does. If I decide to relocate, I'll reach out to you. I have about 3 months until I decide, just doing some advanced research. Yeah, that's definitely smart to do all the research. And if you have any questions that maybe you want to hop on a call or just send me an email or a text, I definitely be happy to answer those questions and see if Oklahoma might be the right place for you. I know it's not for everybody, but I like it and like living here, and I'm glad that we have made the move here. So well, I guess if that's all, then I will see you guys next week. Again, maybe morning, afternoon. We'll just see kind of what's better for people. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one.